Like all of the world's most successful sports, tennis is a simple concept. Sure, it may have an unusual scoring system and some downright bizarre rules, but at its core is a battle between 2 or 4 people divided by a net. It can be physically brutal, but much of the contest is played in the mind, particularly in singles matches, when players sit down at a change of ends. The routine is familiar to us all. The 2 gladiators stalk back to their chairs, neither keen to give away anything in their body language. They sit down either side of the umpire's chair and give a 100-yard stare as they demolish a banana or chow down on an energy gel. As tactics and plans scroll through their mind, they are, for better or worse, alone with their thoughts. The same goes for when the umpire calls time. At the end of each rally, players have to treat triumph and disaster just the same, and coaches can only look on as the charges either grow tall or crumble under the pressure. No input is allowed. That is at least what goes on in the Grand Slams, and as such, what most casual viewers of the sport will see. But tennis is governed by 3 different bodies: the ITF, the ATP, and the WTA, and each has different approaches to coaching. It has always been strictly prohibited at the Slams, but the WTA Tour has allowed on-court coaching since 2008, where players can request a pep talk at their chair once per set at a change of ends. It is now trialling off-court coaching, which permits brief verbal and non-verbal communication from coach to player. The ATP has since followed their lead, with a trial launched in July and running to the end of the 2022 season, incorporating the US Open and the ATP Tour Finals. The trial allows for coaches to communicate to their player from designated seats. They can utter a few words or short phrases when their player is at the same end of the court, while signals are permitted at any time. No conversations are allowed. Ostensibly, the ATP has said the trial is intended to create additional points of intrigue and insight to enhance the fan experience. But is it more about handing yet more power to the players and slimming down a rulebook which is often manipulated without consequence? Tennis has never really got a grip on its rules around coaching, with some players routinely getting hints, tips, or even direct orders from their boxes, often with little attempt made to hide it. Umpires seem unable or unwilling to take a zero-tolerance approach, probably to avoid the sort of fuss created on the occasions where it is punished. Most famously, Serena Williams was given a code violation during the 2018 US Open final after umpire Carlos Ramos observed her coach, Patrick Mouratoglou, making hand gestures that appeared to suggest she move forward more often. Serena was furious, telling Ramos, "I don't cheat." She may not do, but Mouratoglou admitted to ESPN, "I was coaching, but I don't think she, Serena, looked at me." Osaka's coach was coaching the whole time too. Everyone is doing it 100% of the time. Mouratoglou's defense of his actions is consistent with his views on what should be permitted. "I have never understood why tennis is just about the only sport in which coaching during matches is not allowed," he wrote later in 2018. The vast majority of tennis coaches are actually coaching on court, despite the rules. Occasionally the players are punished for it, but for the most part they are not. Stefanos Tsitsipas, who has fallen foul of the rules before, agreed. "Coaching on every point should be allowed in tennis," he tweeted, after being given a code violation in Hamburg in 2021. It seems that given the choice between enforcing the sport's existing rules or allowing the dam to break and the trickle of coaching to become a flood, the authorities have chosen the latter. But why? Tennis doesn't need in-match coaching, it just thinks it does. The suits in charge have been swayed by the arguments over what other sports do and the supposed benefits for spectators and TV viewers. While it is true that many sports permit coaching from the sidelines, it isn't always a positive. In baseball, where hand gestures from coaches and players are commonplace, the opposition are permitted to relay and counter them if they see them on the field, but are not permitted to use video technology to help decode them. Several teams have been implicated in scandals involving replay rooms and even smartwatches. In American football, teams are allowed to film each other's signals, but only from designated areas. Again, this has been flouted in the past. Will tennis coaches stay within the tight boundaries set down in the coaching trial? How long before we see on-court accusations from unhappy players of their opponent's coach bending the rules? Will umpires have the courage to clamp down on it? Judging by the way dissent has been increasingly tolerated, bathroom breaks have got longer and more conveniently taken, and medical timeouts are exploited without intervention. Who is to say the rules around off-court coaching won't be gradually skirted round, bent and eventually eroded, and the dam breaks once again? In other words, where does it stop? The argument that it improves the game as a spectacle doesn't bear scrutiny either, unless coaches are mic'd up, and let's face it, that may be the eventual aim. Subtle words or gestures, which by very definition have to be decipherable only to the player concerned, won't aid the understanding of the casual spectator. There are other consequences too. What if players who are between coaches can't afford one, or, like Nick Kyrgios, don't want one? It will surely create a distinction between the haves and the have-nots. In many areas, tennis has a problem implementing and enforcing its own rules. It has now effectively ceded responsibility of the ban on coaching, foregoing one of tennis's most important elements, the one that differentiates it from most other major sports. That once players leave the locker room, they're on their own.